I have recently been playing with a dangerously exciting idea. You know that diet that I've had for the last 15 years where I eat the same thing every day and it's fantastically optimized and everything works great? What if I changed it? Hi everyone, Paul Mikolev here from Autism from the Inside. Today's question is about what to do when a routine or a habit that has been highly optimized and it's working and you love it. What happens if one day it doesn't work for you anymore? Changing routines is a really big challenge, as especially if you've grown to love it and grown to rely on it. Even the concept of changing to something else can feel extremely daunting. So today, I am seriously considering radically changing this optimized diet that I've been making for myself for 15 years. Before we jump into this exciting journey of possibly changing my 15-year routine, let me share with you just briefly why I love this habit that I've developed. People might think eating the same thing every day is boring, but I know exactly what I'm going to get. I know I'm going to love it. It takes me almost no time because I've done it hundreds of times before. It's very cheap because I've optimized it. It feels good in my body. My body knows what to expect. I look forward to every meal because I know it's going to be good. And if I ever feel like something different, I can very easily, without thinking, eat or buy whatever I want at any time because 99% of the time I'm following this really simple, really good routine. So I don't want to let that go, but I'm starting to think maybe I have to. So for some background, my recent hyperfixation has been researching any option that might possibly help with unexplained incapacitating fatigue, which has hit me in the last couple of months. And naturally, I went back to basics with things like food and sleep. But for a long time, I thought I was doing pretty well with food because of my highly optimized routine. And the main downside to a very efficient system is if it works really, really, really well. And if it's missing something, if it's lacking in some area, then I am going to be chronically lacking in that area systematically every day for 15 years. So out of sheer desperation, I am seriously considering maybe jumping into the unknown and trying to find a new habit that works for me. One of the things I really love about doing research and learning in general is that I've had some questions that have been in my brain for decades that just don't quite make sense. And when I eventually find an answer, something that satisfactorily explains this little niggle that I could never quite find a good answer to, that feels really good. And so excitingly, I might have found an answer to one of my very old questions. And my question is this. In my culture, we eat 3 meals a day, fairly consistently at almost exactly the same time every day. And the concept of skipping one of those 3 meals, well, that's a really big thing. You don't just skip lunch. Like that's generally considered to be a poor self-care strategy to skip a meal. And so my question is, how did everyone else do this? I mean, my grandmother grew up without a refrigerator, right? Things like fridges and microwaves and 24-hour shopping centers are a very, very, very recent phenomenon. So how on earth did people manage to have food already prepared, ready to go, precisely at 3 different times in the day? And the obvious answer is they didn't. I spent some time in Kenya a couple of years ago attending a friend's wedding in a fairly remote part of the country, and it was a well-established culture shock that if they said lunch was at 12, it could easily be at 3 p.m, and that's just a normal day. And the interesting thing is that my partner at the time really, really, really struggled with this. She would get hangry, and if she didn't have food, it was an emergency. We ended up basically having to carry our own snacks everywhere because we couldn't guarantee that a main meal would be within 2 or 3 hours of when it was specified. Now, obviously, people survive just fine in cultures where food times are not quite so precise. I've even heard of cultures that eat once a day, and for them, that's as normal as me eating 3 times a day with snacks. So this question was always never quite resolved. It's like, are people just pushing through their hunger? Are they just starving all the time and just waiting, hanging out for that next meal? And the answer is no. It turns out our bodies are surprisingly flexible. When food is frequent and abundant, we know what to do. When food is scarce and sporadic, our bodies know what to do. Apparently, according to my research this week, our bodies have like a switch, to use a simplistic term, to go from one to the other depending on the environment. So that sounds great in theory, but actually, when I think about it, this also matches my personal experience. You're getting a lot of random little stories today. The concept of fasting is quite common in lots of religious traditions. When I lived in Malaysia for a bit, I informally participated in Ramadan, which involves a month of no food or water from sunrise to sunset. And in the Catholic tradition, it's common to give up something for Lent in the 40 days before Easter. And one year, I gave up lunch. I still took a break at lunchtime with my colleagues, except they would eat and I would not. And the funny thing is, looking back on those two experiences of religiously inspired fasting, I don't recall it being particularly difficult. I definitely do not remember being hungry all the time. I mean, it sounds pretty extreme, right? 12 plus hours without food every day. But my memory of those months is, after a day or two, I just got used to it somehow. This is going to link back to me eating the same thing every day, I promise. So going back to my research this week, that fits my experience, that as long as you're getting enough food, the precise time isn't all that important. But if that was the only thing, it would be kind of interesting, I suppose, but not all that useful, a little bit like a fun fact. The real catch that is making me completely reconsider my habits is learning that these two different modes apparently perform quite different functions in our body. A little bit like how there are certain recovery processes that happen when I sleep that do not happen when I'm awake. If my body has evolved to expect to sleep, then some functions happen when I sleep. And similarly, if my body has evolved to sometimes be in fasting mode and sometimes be in food abundance mode, there are some things that happen when my body is in that mode. And that idea feels really exciting in the sense of maybe it can explain the intense fatigue that seems to be getting worse. If I have accidentally been skipping part of my body's recovery phase by keeping it in food comes regularly at least 3 times a day mode for over 15 years, what if all I need to do is find a way to activate that rest mode? So as you can see, I'm pretty desperate to find something that I can try that has a chance of helping to get my energy back. And so it's quite exciting to find a seemingly scientifically solid claim that at least might have some potential. So I don't have an answer yet, and I'm deliberately making this video before implementing any major changes. Otherwise, it's too easy to whitewash results with the gift of hindsight. But if you're interested, the term that I found that relates to this regeneration state is called autophagy. Apparently, it's where your body stops growing new cells and starts repairing old cells. Or similar. I'm not a doctor. But the recommendations I've been finding seem pretty good. Basically, anti-inflammatory diet, exercise, and periodic fasting. So is that worth trying? You know how I like data, hence optimizing my spreadsheet for my previous daily eating habit. Anyway, I think I need to acknowledge that change is big. And the more you rely on routine, I was relying on routine a lot, the bigger it is and the harder it is to make serious improvements. There's a big difference between tweaking an existing solution, optimizing an existing solution, and trying something completely new. Unfortunately, life requires that every once in a while we try something completely new. There's only so much we can tweak a solution that's not working until we realize that it doesn't matter how much I modify this, it's not going to be radically different. and it's hard to say goodbye. My previous daily eating habit was cheap and efficient and balanced, and I'd optimized it over 15 years to meet every criteria I could think of, except the ones that I've learnt of in the last week. One of the biggest costs in changing a routine like this is the executive function load of losing a comfort. That's what I'm thinking of at the moment when I think of it for myself. I am losing my comfort of what I used to do every day because I loved it. I used to go shopping for 30 minutes a week, cook once a week for 1 hour, and I would have all of my meals perfectly planned out for an entire week so that I didn't have to spend any more energy thinking about it. And I know I would have everything I need. Now I'm basically going back to square one, learning how my body reacts to certain foods now that I'm eating certain other foods instead of my daily standard, relearning different recipes, relearning how to go shopping and the kinds of things that I need every week. Previously, when everything was standard, I didn't even need to write a shopping list because I just get exactly the same things and I'd done it 100 times before. That's an understatement. 50 weeks a year times 15 years is, go maths, 700 times, something like that. Now, everything's new. I need to use my brain power for every decision because it's not standard anymore. Anyway, I thought I'd share. Hopefully that was interesting. Wish me luck. If you'd like to hear the result of my trial, let me know. I'm not even 100% sure what I'm going to do yet, but it's exciting. Wish me luck. See you next time.